Come on, welcome in, welcome in, welcome to another episode of Apostolic Insight. Come on, y'all know what to do. We are back again, and I hope that this has been a blessed week for you so far. But I also hope that you are ready, that you are prepared, because tonight we are getting ready to dive into some things that are going to be impactful for you. Now, you know me, I believe that every time we come together is going to be impactful. But I also know there are certain topics that we can dive into and discuss that are going to make a bigger impact on your life and on your ministry. And tonight is going to be one such episode. So I want you to do me a favor. Jump in the chat. Let me know that you are watching with me. If you're here, you're watching live, I want you to jump in the chat right now. Let me know that you're here and that you're watching. I want to know the name of your church, the name of your city, or if you're a business leader, you're an entrepreneur or a nonprofit leader, I want you also to jump in the chat. Let me know who you are and where you are watching from. I want to connect with you. I want to know who you are. I want to see who you are so that we can continue to build relationship and connection as we dive into this process together. Right. So I'm going to give it a few minutes. I know I just had the text go out to all of our partners who are going to be joining us, whether you be on Facebook or on YouTube or you're on LinkedIn. I think today we're going to be coming also from the Simple Systems page as well. So you may be joining us from there. If you're joining us from the Simple Systems page, I want to make sure you have that you're connected, that we can see you, we can connect with you as well. But just jump in the chat and let me know that you are here. And we're going to get ready to roll on. All right. So tonight we're going to be talking about something that many of you have mentioned in different times and different moments. And tonight we're going to dive into that really in an attempt to help bring some clarity to wherever you and your church are. We're going to be diving into this topic where we're going to be talking about quiet quitting. That's right. We're going to be talking about what it looks like and how we are in this new and unique era where it seems as though leaders are slipping away and they are not doing it loudly. They are not doing it by letting us know. They are not doing it by telling us what's happening, and they are not doing it by telling us what's going on. They are doing it in ways that feels like they're just quietly slipping away. And so tonight, I want to dive into that. Tonight, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to dive into this thing so that we can make sure that we all understand what is happening, what the enemy may or may not be attempting to do, but we're also going to do it so that we can make sure we're on the same page about what we can do as leaders to make a difference and to make sure that we set a pace and an opportunity for the body of Christ and the kingdom of God to continue to move forward in the way that God has called it. All right. So I want to welcome y'all here tonight. Welcome my brother, J Rock Church, Pastor Pierce. Glad to have you. Welcome in, Pastor Lady Nakia Smith, Reconciliation Church. Glad to have you all. Good to see you, Latricia Stanley. Welcome in, Reverend Ursula Van Stavel. AMNEC in Cape Town, South Africa. So glad to have you here. Glad to have you here from St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church, Charleston, South Carolina. Good to see you, Pastor Smith, up there in Flint. Man, good to see you. Good to see you, Pastor Art Lee, over in South Carolina. Good to see you. J Rock Church is in the house. Pastor Warren is in the house. Good to see so many of you coming in and popping in. And I am super, super excited to dive into this with you. All right. So I want to get ready to jump in because we've got some things to cover. Good to see you, Pastor Kebrew. Good to see you as well. Woodside, New York. Woodside, New York. I don't know how far you are, but I will be in Brooklyn this weekend, Pastor. And if that's anywhere close to you, man, I'd love an opportunity to shake your hand. If it's somewhere close by, I'll be up there with one of our churches this weekend for their anniversary service. And so I'm looking forward to jumping into what we're going to jump into tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to jump into this, and I'm going to tell you right now, you won't see my face really big on the presentation tonight because I want you to get the content. You know, y'all know what I look like. Y'all look at me, y'all see me all the time. I want you to see the content and what I'm going to be sharing. And so I'm going to really highlight that on the screen tonight. But I promise you, when we put out the clips and all that kind of stuff like that, you'll be able to see me just fine because of the way we're setting this thing up and the way we're getting it done. All right. So we're going to get ready to dive into this tonight. So let me work on how I want to view this and how I want to set this up. I think I want to do it this way. Yeah, I think this is how I want to do it. All right. I want to dive into this because we're going to be talking about quiet quitting. And for those of you who are leaders, for those of you who have been around the church for some period of time, you know that we are living in some sort of epidemic where it feels as though leaders are slipping away. And unfortunately, leaders do not handle the things with us the way we handle them with them. And sometimes we can be good to a person, we can be right with the person, we can walk with them, we can be patient with them, we can do all the things. But when the time comes for them to transition, it seems like they just slip away. But for some of you, it's a little bit different because for you, what it feels like is that your team is present, but they're not totally active. And so we're going to begin to dive into some of that tonight. All right. Welcome in Pastor Pernell, Chesapeake, Virginia, Pastor Shadrach Robinson over in Missouri. Good to have you. Good to have you, Pastor Joe, Jonesboro, Louisiana. Good to have you, Gabriel. Good to see you, all of you. Glad to have you here tonight. All right. So let's talk about quiet quitting. We're going to dive into this and we're going to go into this because I know that so many of you have seen this. All right. Right before I jump in, I want you to do something for me. I want you to grab this link and I want you to send it to the leaders on your team. Grab it right now. Go ahead and send it to them and tell them, like, hey, I want you to come listen in on this teaching. Hey, we were just talking about this. I think this is going to be good. Come listen in. Maybe there's another pastor. I want you to share it with another pastor. I had a pastor I met with, and he said, man, I found you one. He was like, you was doing the 21-day challenge. One of my friends who's a pastor, man, he sent me the info and said, man, I think you would enjoy this. This is what you've been looking for. And he found us because another pastor shared it. And so if you would do me an absolute favor, if you would take this link and send it out to some other leaders, you know, some other pastors, you know, who can plug in, we want to see it. All right. Our channel has been growing. This Tuesday night has been growing. I think last week we got up to almost about 75 people live who were a part of the conversation. All right. Let's see if we can break 100 tonight together, right? Not just for me, not just for you, but for all of us, because when the kingdom rises, we all rise together. And so I want to have some conversation. I want y'all to be active in the chat. So do me a favor, help get the word out, send it to your team. Send it to some other pastors you know, share it on Facebook if you're watching there, and invite them to come in and to pop in with us. Good to see you, Pastor Fennell. Good to see you. Pastor John Evans up in Michigan. Good to see you. Glad to have you, all right? So let's dive into this. While you're sharing, I want to go ahead and jump into this because I want to talk about this epidemic, all right? Here is one of the realities that we face and that you are facing if you have accepted the call to be the leader that God has called you to be. And here I use the term apostolic because when I look at the fivefold, when I look at Ephesians chapter 4, and I look at the functions that come out of Ephesians chapter 4, one of the things that I see, one of the things that I quickly and very strongly kind of recognize is I recognize very quickly that these are not just titles, but that what Paul is describing, he is describing for us functions. He's describing for us lenses through which different leaders begin to see the world and begin to see what God is calling them to do. He's describing how we see things, how we operate in our unique giftings. He is describing these different things for us. And when he describes them, one of the things that I see in each of the fivefold gifts is I see motion. I see motion. Every single one of the fivefold gifts, or one of the gifts of the Jesus DNA, I call it, every single one of them is geared towards moving the church in a direction. Teachers want to get the kingdom into people. All right. Shepherds wants to bring the church internally and wants to make it focus internally on each other, on community and care. Evangelists want to share the gospel externally. They want to go outward. They want the gospel to reach people who have not heard it yet and have not been impacted by it. Prophetic people want the church to move upward. They want us to be in alignment with God. They want us to be where he is. They don't want a good idea. They want a God idea. And then apostolic leaders are those who want to move the body of Christ forward. They're ever innovating and driving forward. They are not settled with where they are, They are not okay with where things are and where things have always been. They are envelope pushers who want to drive the church into the future that they believe God has for it. Those are how apostolic leaders operate. They're thinking about how the church can move from where it is to where God has called it to go. And here is the thing, even if you are a pastor at heart, if there is any kind of apostolic function in you, one of the realities that you face is sometimes the frustration of running, but feeling like you're running alone. This is one of the challenges. And I'm not talking about people being in the room, because you can have people in the room, but they are at the table and yet not seeing things the same way that you see them. And so last week we talked about how the church is stuck and we've got to get the church off the on-ramp and we've got to get the church moving forward into where God has called it to go and where God has called it to be. We talked about the church having to decide, do we go down, do we stay the same, or do we go a level higher? And in every season, you've got to make that choice. But tonight we're gonna shift that a little bit, because some of you have vision, but you don't have velocity. Some of you have vision, but it is velocity that you're missing. You have vision, but it's movement that you're lacking. Some of you're ready to take the next step. You're ready to make the climb, but it seems like your team has gotten comfortable sitting down around you. And we're going to deal with that tonight, because I want to help you begin to break through the frustration and this challenge. This idea where it feels like sometimes I'm running, but nobody is running with me. Come on, if I'm talking to you, somebody say it, put it in chat. Say, I feel you. Just put it in chat. Say, I feel you. I feel you. We're going to talk about this tonight because, every time you all comment, every time you all ask a question, every time you all email me, every time you inbox me, I am learning from your questions. And I'm taking your questions, I'm taking your challenges, and I'm saying, how can we apply healing and wisdom and strategy so that the church can move forward? And tonight is just another step in that direction. All right. And so I want to walk through. I see y'all with me tonight. Okay, y'all with me tonight. All right. So I want you to grab this, because we're going to talk about this. Because I know the frustration of what it feels like. And this is the analogy I wanted to use, because I was going to use a car analogy for this whole episode before I switched it up. But imagine getting in your car, putting it in drive, pressing the gas, and then the car doesn't move. Immediately you understand something is broken. I remember years and years ago, this is when I was a brand new driver. As a matter of fact, I was 16 years old. And I had one of those old school grandmothers who didn't drive. All right. She did not drive. She said she knew how to drive, but in all my years of life, she was alive until I was about 18. And for my first 18 years of life, I never a single time saw her drive. And I remember one particular time, I had been given a task by my mother to drive my grandmother to the store. And I could tell she was a little nervous. She kept looking at me like, can you do this? I think you got it. You're a smart kid. You're going to handle it. Whatever it is. She kept on telling me that. But I got in the car to get ready to drive. And I'm driving her in the car, driving to the store just fine. I get her there. Everything is all good. No problems. Then we get ready to leave. And when it's time for us to leave, I'm getting in the car and I'm pushing the gas, and the car is it's revving, but it's not moving. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Like, I'm pushing, I'm like, I'm going, it's not moving, I'm not moving. And she leans over and she says, you got it in drive? She said, has the car been acting up? I said, no, the car ain't been acting up, it's fine. I said, it's revving, but it's just not moving. She leans over on my side, she looks down up under the steering wheel, she looks at my feet, and she says, boy, you pushing the gas, but your other foot is on the brake. And sometimes that's what it feels like in your church. It feels like there's a segment of people in your church who are pushing the gas, and then there's another segment of people who are pushing the brake at the same time. And what it's doing is frustrating the entire vision. It's frustrating everything, because contrary to popular belief, Doesn't matter how much authority you have. I know even if you're the senior pastor, you're the senior leader. You can push the gas as hard as you want, but there are some places that if the people around you are pushing the brake, things will not move the way that you desire them to move. And so tonight, I want to help you discover why some of the people on your team are pushing the brake and how you can help them transition out of this phase of being stuck and having the brakes held down. You know, I'm thinking about this because I've been working on our new library in our church systems in a box. And all of our pastors and churches who are part of our programs have access to this training library. And one of the things that I'm getting ready, that I was working on today, is that I was moving some training over. I'm getting ready to course some new training, all that kind of stuff like that. But one of the things that I'm putting a heavy emphasis on, that I really want to put some things on, is how to build a team. Because man, listen, it does not matter how clear and how strong your vision is until you learn how to build a team, until you learn how to not just assemble a team, because that's not what I'm saying. You know, a lot of people know how to assemble a team. It's really easy to point some people out and say, hey, look, I want y'all to be leaders. And they come in. That's assembling a team. When I say build a team, I'm talking about getting the right people at the table, but then also training and developing them up into the vision. Because here is what Jesus really teaches us. You build a team, the team builds the vision. And so I'm developing this training, and this is going to be one of the foundational pieces of it. I put together this slide deck, these infographic. I got all these tools that are going to go into that library for those pastors. All right. So I'm just saying that because if you're here tonight, you're listening in, and you're watching us live, whatever it is, I want you to understand, if you want some help moving the needle forward, as I'm talking through this, I want to invite you to take a look at our Church Systems in a Box program. And I want you to look at allowing us to come alongside you and help you build what God's called you to build. And I'm only saying that because I hate to open a wound that I don't help apply healing to. That's one of my rules when I preach, is that I'm not going to uncover something and let the people walk out raw and beat up and hurting and struggling, and then all of a sudden the enemy come in and pounce on it. So if I open up a wound, I want to stitch it back up before we're done, okay? And so I'm just throwing you the stitches with that Church Systems in a Box and saying, okay, if this is where you are and this frustrates you, I want you to know that we have a solution that can help you, all right? All right, let's keep going, all right? So look at this. Here is what you're facing in your team. You know, we have, for some reason, we have wrongly diagnosed rebellion in the body of Christ. I really do think we have. We have wrongly diagnosed rebellion because sometimes I think we accuse people of things that they don't even have enough information to accomplish. You know, for somebody to be in rebellion, they have to have a total and full understanding of the vision. They have to be crystal clear on what they're supposed to be doing. They have to have agreed to what they are called to do. They have to be on the same page about all these different things. And what I have discovered is that a lot of times what we see from our people is not rebellion, it's quiet quitting. It's not that they just flat out rebelled against us, but instead it's that they are quietly quitting. You know, when people quietly quit, here's what it looks like, and here's what they usually do, is that they do just enough to stay connected, but not enough to move things forward. Oh my goodness. Come on, y'all can already see this. I'm going to be on one tonight, okay? Listen, when people quietly quit, and this is a trend that I'm seeing in the body of Christ, I'm seeing in the church, is that leaders are quiet quitting. They are not coming in and saying, well, I don't want to do this, or I don't believe in the vision, or the vision is not clear. I don't want to go. I don't want to be. They're not doing any of that. They stay in the role. If you ask them, do you still want to do this? Yeah, I still want to do it. But they do just enough to stay connected, but not enough to move the vision forward. And here's what you understand. So many times in your church, people don't have to fight the vision to slow it down. People don't have to fight the vision to slow it down. What they do is they just stop carrying it. Come on, Pastor Brooks, I'm in here tonight, man. Yes, sir, Pastor Kebrew, I got you. We're finna get into it tonight. We're finna get all the way into it. All right, listen. People People sometimes don't fight the vision, they just stop carrying it. So they don't actively push against you. But instead, a lot of times what can happen is they just stop carrying the part that you were dependent on them to carry. You know, one of my favorite shows to watch is this show Survivor. And I love Survivor. And Survivor is a show where they take these 20 contestants, they put them out in this faraway land, break them into tribes, and they have to compete to survive. And it's the last person standing. Whoever is the last person standing wins $1 million, right? And so throughout, they have these different challenges that challenge you mentally, challenge you physically, whatever. And one of the old school challenges that they have that I love is they have this, I can't remember what it's called, but it's kind of like a strongman challenge. And so basically what they do is that they get their two strongest players and they put a bar on their back, almost like they're just in a standing squat. And then as they answer questions, when they answer questions correctly, they get some weight and they get to choose which one of the people they want to add that weight to, and they can add that weight to each of the people. And eventually what happens is that the person who can stand the longest ends up winning. But here's another variation of that challenge that also is so hard, is that you've got leaders walking together carrying that weight. And when a leader gets tired and they feel like they can't go on anymore, they can quit. But when they quit, the weight that they were carrying has to go on one of their teammates. Man, and one of the craziest things I've seen is when you got somebody who's already tired and they struggling trying to carry all this weight. They've been walking for 10 minutes with 50 pounds on their back. They're tired, they're exhausted. And a teammate looks and says, I can't do this no more. And they quit and take their 10, 20 pounds and put it on the person who's already exhausted. And that's what quiet quitting feels like for us as pastors. If you're here tonight and you're not a senior pastor, I want you to know that's what it feels like when your pastor has to carry the weight of the whole team. They're walking, and I know they make it look easy and they make it look good, and you think that they're Superman because they're so spiritual or Superwoman. But when leaders don't carry what they're called to carry, the senior leaders often have to grab it. They have to grab it. And people are quiet quitting. And sometimes they're present in body, but they're absent in spirit. Listen, Pastor Brooks said, is this even after they said God told them to? Listen, people lie on God all the time. They lie on God all the time. You know, immature people often hear what they believe is the voice of the Lord through their own preferences. It takes maturity to learn that God is not always saying what I want to hear. Right? It takes maturity to learn that. And so what ends up happening, again, is that we end up surrounded by people who do the minimum. Let me show you some signs. Let's walk through this because this is going to get into it. Here is what it can look like when somebody is quiet quitting. All right. Number one, when people are always late, inconsistent, and have passive participation. People come late to things that they don't value. Now, I know I'm gonna step on some toes when I say that, because I know some of you are like, man, well, I be trying to get out of here, man. I got this. If you at home and you got 3, 4 small kids and you trying to wait on your kids and so forth, or you got a spouse who, wake up with hell in them every Sunday, or they can't be on time to say their life and stuff like that. Like, I get that. But when people are consistently late, it is one of the signs that they are not taking what they're doing as seriously as they should. When they are inconsistent, when they do a good job sometimes and sometimes they don't. When they show up and sometimes they don't. Man, I keep hearing about leaders who are in leadership roles and then have Sundays where they don't come to church and they didn't communicate it to anybody. Nobody knew they weren't going to be there. Like, that is asinine to me. Like, that is just absolutely crazy. But it's a sign of quiet quitting. And another thing is passive participation. Is when they show up to things and they're there, but they won't participate unless you draw them to participate. Now, if they're an introvert and they're quiet and reserved, that's their personality, that's different. But a lot of times when a person is quiet quitting, before their body physically leaves, their effort leaves. And so what happens is they come into the meeting and they sit there, but they don't say anything. And as soon as they get there right before it starts and they leave as soon as it's over. If it's a Zoom call, they probably not going to even have their camera on. And even if you tell them, turn your camera on, you can make it explicit. Turn your camera on. Like if you want to come to the meeting, you got to have your cameras on. They will get on that meeting with your cameras off, make you call them on it. And when you call them on it, they'll say, well, I'm driving or I'm moving around. I'm just telling you, these are the ways that you can start to recognize. And I'm giving you this not just to pass judgment on the people that you have around you, because everybody is different, but I'm giving you this so you won't be blindsided, so that it won't catch you off guard when you walk in this. Here's another one. Excuses replace ownership. Instead of accepting responsibility for what they do or do not do, they make excuses, and it's always, their failure is always based on something that's beyond their control. They're doing it based on, they always blame it on something else. That's what they're doing. They're always saying, well, no, it was such and such, or man, it was this and that, or it was that. All right, here's another one, and this is a big one. They start bringing tell me what to do energy instead of let's build this thing energy. See, tell me what to do energy is, what do you want? I'm gonna just do what you want. No, just, no, because you just tell me what you want. They almost start to operate in this place where they feel or they are convinced as though they have been ignored or pushed to the side. Because a lot of times when somebody wants to leave and they want to walk away, they have to create a villain in order to give themselves peace. Because most people aren't brave enough to just say, listen, the Lord didn't tell me my season is up. The Lord didn't tell me it's time to go. I just want to go. I want to move. I want to do something different. People aren't brave enough to say that. And so as a result, a lot of times what they'll do is that they've got to create a villain. And as a senior leader, you are the easiest target. I'm just telling you the truth. Now listen, I got to stir this thing up first. I'm gonna give you the solution here in a minute, but I got to stir this thing up first, all right? And so what you got to understand is that many times disengagement is a symptom, not a root. Okay? So I want to talk about what they got going on and what they're doing, but I'm going to bring it back to us, all right? I'm going to bring it back to us, all right? It's a symptom, not a root. And so what we've got to endeavor to do is we've got to get to the root, all right? Come on, somebody put root in the chat. We got to get to the root of the issue. We got to get to the bottom of what the real problem is. And it's such a tricky place because as senior leaders, we're called to build people. We're called to show grace. We're called to do all these different things, but it's hard when you don't know what you're working with. And so I'm going to give you some filters, all right? I'm going to give you some stuff to help you walk through and to help you figure this thing out, all right? So here's the analogy I want to use tonight. I want to use the analogy of a relay race. I was going to use the analogy of a car, but I don't want to take for granted that everybody understands how a car works. You know, engines and pistons and all this kind of. So a relay race is very simple. In a relay race, there is a pivotal moment in the race that makes all the difference. You know, there have been several years over the past 20 years, because I've been following track and field since I was a kid. It's been my favorite sport. And I can point to at least 10 occasions where the United States Olympic team had the fastest relay team and did not win the race. Not only did they not win the race, they got disqualified. Several times, I can point to it. Several times. They had the fastest team, the fastest runners, but they didn't win the race. That's because to run a relay, there's a couple of things that you need. All right. Number one, there is always an incoming runner. The incoming runner. That's the person who is moving with speed and velocity. And in most cases, in this analogy, that's going to be the senior leader, the visionary. You're running with vision and speed, and you're excited because you have done the hard work of coming out the blocks, getting started, pushing through resistance, pushing through warfare, coming through, and you're trying to get upright and you get to running. But as you come in your hand, you have a baton. And that baton, for this analogy, is going to be your systems. It's going to be how you clarify, how you train. That's your baton. And you're trying to pass that baton to another leader. But here is what's so unique about this in track and field. On the track, if you ever go to a track, you look out there, you'll see these triangles. You know, a lot of times they're usually yellow, but sometimes they're white, they're different colors. But you see these triangles. And these triangles represent something called the exchange zone. And the exchange zone is the legal zone whereby within that zone, you have got to pass that baton. You can't pass it before. If you pass it before, you'll get disqualified because you went too early. If you pass it too late, you'll get disqualified because you waited too long. You got to pass the baton in the exchange zone. And so here's what happens in the exchange zone. So this picture that you're looking at on screen, to me, as somebody who is an avid track fan and track runner, I fully understand that this is just a picture. That is not a realistic image. And the reason I want you to know there's just a picture, not a realistic image, is because the baton, the way they're standing, is not correct for a healthy exchange. Like they go right hand to right hand. I mean, that's just not gonna work. All right, they on the same side. I'm like, nah, that ain't gonna work. Okay, because here's what happens in a real race. In the exchange zone, there is a season where the two runners have to run parallel to each other. They have to be on the same page. Because the one thing that can ruin the whole race, even if you got good runners, even if you have good people, even if you have a lot of speed, is if we drop the baton. If we drop the baton, the race is over. And that's what I want to walk into tonight, is that we've got to diagnose the gaps between you and your vision and your speed and the people who seem to be lying dormant in the church. Okay? You've got to be able to make sure you diagnose the gaps. And that's what we're going to deal with tonight. All right. So primarily, there are 3 gaps that I want to deal with tonight. These are 3 undercover reasons that your people might be quiet quitting. Right now, we have talked about what the team can do and how that can go. But now I want to talk about you as a leader, because I need you to cover yourself and your ministry by doing everything possible to make sure that on the day of judgment, you can stand before God and say, if there's a ton of people who walked away from me, left me high and dry, I did everything I could. Because that follows the Jesus model. Man, Jesus said, man, we would desire that none of them would be lost. Not a single one. And so here's what we got to do. And these are the reasons that good people can go dormant. Now, bad people do whatever they're going to do. Sometimes you got to say to them, like Jesus said to Judas, do what you came to do. My friend, do what you came to do. All right. But good people can also get disengaged in your culture if these 3 things are not handled well. We're going to talk about the clarity gap. This is where they don't know what to do. They know what role you put them in, but you see in them something that they may not have seen in themselves yet. And as a result, where they lack clarity, they get paralyzed. We'll talk about it. Number 2 is the purpose gap, is that they know what to do, but they don't know why to do it. They don't know why it makes a difference. And I'm going to talk about this, all right? People, it's not that people don't want to work. People don't like doing busy work. They want to do work that is significant and that matters. And so we're going to talk about that purpose gap. And I'm going to just go ahead and give you this real quick. One of the reasons that some of our best people disengage is because all we want to do is have church. And if all you want to do is have church, that's exciting to you because you're a pastor. But just having church is not exciting to the average person. They want to make a difference. But you've got to close the purpose gap. And then number three is the feedback gap. And this was one that was a shock to me when I learned it and when the Lord started to deal with me about it. But this is where we constantly and consistently let people know how they're doing. Some of you as leaders, you are not willing to say the hard things to people who need to hear them. And there are some people on your team who have gone bad and they have gone dormant, not because they were bad people, but because you wouldn't say the honest things to them. And we're going to talk about that tonight, all right? So we're going to talk about clarity, purpose, and feedback, all right? Real quick, just on that brief introduction, just based on those brief different words, which of those gaps are you most excited to hear about, or do you think most will fit where you are? I want you to drop it in the chat, either clarity, purpose, or feedback. Drop it in the chat. Let me know which one. Which one of these is going to be, do you think is going to be most significant to you or your team? Drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat. Let me know. All right. We got to do it. We got to say the hard things. We got to diagnose the gaps. We got to get where we want to go. Right. And I want to put y'all's comments on the screen. But for some reason, they are not coming up for me in my system. And so I can't get to them tonight. So it's not letting me share it. All right. All right. But just drop it in the chat. All right. Drop it in the chat. Which of the three do you think? Somebody said all. Somebody said number three, feedback. All right, purpose and feedback. All right, keep dropping those in the chat. All right, I see a little bit of everything. I see a little bit of everything. All right, let's get into it. Come on, listen, Chantel, I got to get into it. We got to get this. We're going to get this work tonight. I told y'all it's going to be a problem tonight. I'm going to be on one tonight. We got to go for it. All right, so let's get into it. Number one, the clarity gap. Let's talk about the clarity gap. All right, here's the problem with the clarity gap. People don't know what to do. All right, and now before you respond, before you say, man, I done told him, before you say I gave him a job description, just hear me out. Hear me out. All right. Hear me out. Here is the reality. You have got to learn how to communicate with sheep. How shepherds talk to each other has to be different from how shepherds talk to sheep. All right. Last month, about 3 weeks ago, in our coaching call, we did our team implementation call. So every second Thursday of the month, we have a call where pastors send their leaders. Pastors don't come to that call. They can if they want to sit in, but they send their leaders to that call. And on that call, I coached these support leaders, right? These executive pastors, worship leaders, children's ministry directors, connections teams leader. I coached them on how to relate to their leaders, right? And one of the things that I taught them was how to communicate up, how to effectively communicate to your leader. Here is how you want to talk, but here is how a senior leader hears. So here's how you need to communicate. And pastors, some of the pastors I've been talking to have been telling me, like, man, my team been doing this. Man, it's a game changer. They came in, they did this, all of these kind of things, right? Sheep communicate different than shepherds. And so what you've got to learn is that you like to speak in vision, but teams live in task. We like to speak in vision, but teams live in task. And when the win, when the victory, when what success looks like is not defined clearly enough for them to understand, not for you to understand, but for them to understand, people start doing the minimum just to make sure that they can be safe in their role. And so you cannot have vague expectations, because vague expectations create fear. People begin to believe that, you know what? What if I get this wrong? What if I'm doing this not right? What if this ain't it? What if they start to think all of these different things? And it creates fear in them. And so what you've got to do is that you've got to give an insane amount of clarity. This is why I always say one of the most important time blocks on the schedule of a leader is thinking time. Because you've got to answer as many questions as you can so that your team doesn't have to. Because a question that might take you a day to answer might take them 6 months to answer. And so you've got to make sure you give them insane clarity. You've got to give them the kind of clarity that's going to help them move forward. All right. Habakkuk 2 said, make it plain so they can run. If it's not plain, They can't run. So what do they do when they can't run? When they can't run? Walk, stall, or sit. And if your people are walking, stalling, or sitting, sometimes it's because the vision is not clear enough for them to run. You know, when I step into technology and I step into different things, to me, it seems simple. I go into a website, I go into a membership program, I go into a software, even if I've never seen it before, give me 30 minutes. And man, I can figure that thing out and I can navigate it. And then there are other leaders, pastors, who can go into that same software and say, man, show me how to do this. You show them how to do it. A week later, the same person is asking you again, man, how do I get to this again? And here's what we have learned as a team. We cannot communicate in terms of vision. We've got to break it down into clear step-by-step tasks. And you've got to do the same. You cannot get the vision just to a point where it's clear to you. You've got to get it to a point where the vision and the expectations are clear to the people you're talking to. Okay? So for example, if you say to somebody on your team, hey man, look, just serve with excellence. Well, what does that mean? Your definition of excellence and my definition of excellence might be different. And all it takes is one time for me to do what I believe is excellence, and then you tell me that it's not excellence, and now I have learned that what you say and what I think are two completely different things. So guess what? Walk, stall, sit. I want you to think about that. Think about how many times you have been frustrated with somebody who did not meet your standard when your standard was not made clear to them on the front end. You know, here's another thing that causes a clarity gap. It's when entire teams in your ministry depend on the memory of one person instead of some kind of clear process or protocol. That's another thing that causes a huge gap. It causes a huge disconnect. Every week when there are last minute changes, when as a leader, you move in the last minute. Listen, if you are a last minute, don't plan, don't send out an agenda kind of leader, you will create insecure team members. Your lack of organization will create insecure team members. One of the modules that I was working on today in the library was this module called the intentional leader. And in this intentional leader training, one of the things I'm saying to pastors is that if you don't become an organized leader, you cannot lead an organized church. And so what's going to end up happening is if you stay disorganized, you're going to attract more disorganized people and you're going to repel most of your organized people. Now, and sometimes different people will break through. Sometimes people will be so clear on who they are and what their role is in your life that they'll take that step and come in and say, look, I'm here to be your organizer. But then a lot of times if somebody come in here and say, you know what, the Lord sent me here to do this for you, we look at them sideways because that has gone wrong too many times. And so the truth of the matter is, if you don't become an organized leader, you can't lead an organized church. And if everything is living in your head and you do it by how you feel, and this is, you got to really watch out for this if you got an apostolic or prophetic ministry, the feels will get you in trouble and it will make stability elude you. All right. And so you got to wrestle with that. So here's a question I want you to ask and I want you to think about. All right. I want you to think about this. When you look at every person on your team in one sentence, can you describe what a win is for them? All right. What's a win for your worship leader? What's a win for your new members person? What's a win for the person who's presiding over service and handling transition? You send a minister up there to do the transition. What's a win? What's a win? Man, you know, I never forget, I was on staff at the church and I would go and do the transition. And man, sometimes I would do it and I go back, talk to the pastor. He like, man, you gotta, it's already highlighted. You gotta bring us down. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Next Sunday I go up there, I bring us down. He's like, man, it was just going good, man. You gotta take it up. I was like, oh, okay. I said, you know what? You need to get somebody else to do this. Hey, look, somebody else, you know what? I need to be out there. I got to work on the parking team for the next couple of months. And I just slowly bagged out and was like, you know what? I'm going to let you just go with this because there is no win. Anything I do is wrong, and no person of excellence likes being wrong all the time. So you got to get clear. You got to get clear. You got to give them a win. And this win can be insanely practical. New members team, so that every first time guest receives a call within 48 hours and is invited to come back by the end of the week. That's a win. And it doesn't just have to be one, but it can be one sentence. What is the win? Every first time guest is greeted, is called within 48 hours, invited to come back by the end of the week, and every new member completes new members class within 30 days. What's the win? You can make it insanely direct. You can make it practical or spiritual. That's up to you. That's up to you. But I would encourage definitely practical. Make it practical. Make it practical. All right. And so we got to walk into that. And yes, Brother Evans, I'm coming to that on feedback. We're gonna talk about both. You got to give both kinds. And contrary to popular belief, people want negative feedback too. I'm gonna prove it to you in a minute. All right. So number one is the clarity gap. All right. If y'all with me, drop the word clarity in the chat. Drop clarity in the chat. All right. Let's go to number two. Number two is purpose. Purpose. And I'm trying to drink this hot tea. I've been having something going on up in here the last couple of days. I've been having that scratch in my throat from traveling and got stuck in the airport this weekend for a couple of hours and just all kind of stuff, right? So the purpose gap. And here is the thing with the purpose gap. And I want you to get this. People don't mind working. They do mind meaningless work. And what you've got to be able to do is you've got to be able to show people why what they're doing matters. You got to be able to show them, okay? You can't just treat them like they're just free labor who just comes and goes. Like they're doing a job that anybody can do. You've got to help them see the bigger picture of what they're doing. And sometimes it's as simple as reframing it. So I'm going to show you some role reframes here in a second. It's as simple as communicating a different way what they're doing and letting them see it. And what happens is that when people start to feel like we're just using them as labor, they start to withdraw. They start to pull back. And when they start to pull back, then this gap begins to be magnified. And so what I've got to do as a leader is I've got to stop filling slots and I've got to start raising leaders. I've got to start raising leaders. Volunteers are easy, y'all. Hey, come stand on this door for me. That's easy. But taking some time and sitting down to pour into people, it's the long way, but it's the right way. At the end of this, I'm going to try and convince you to go from building volunteers to building sons and daughters. Because those two groups of people operate differently, but they take a different amount of time. I spend a good amount of time with the football team. I was over at the school today. I went and go and lift weights with the guys. I'm volunteering there as a football coach, right? And as a volunteer, I see them a couple times a week, couple hours a day during the season. But guess what? I live with my kids. I see my kids all the time, right? And so what you got to understand, those two things are different. So you got to feel the purpose gap, all right? So here's what it looks like. And here's a part of what I'm talking about when I say reframe, is that you have to help people see why what they're doing is so valuable in the kingdom of God. You got to help them see that, hey, look, you're not just a greeter. You're an atmosphere setter. You're inviting people to come back into a partnership and relationship with God that is going to transform their lives. You're not just an usher, you're a guide. People who come in don't know where to go. This is a strange place. They've not been here before. You're making sure that they're comfortable, and you create a space where they can let their guard down and have an encounter with God. You're not just doing kids ministry. You're building the next generation. You're shaping what a child believes about God. You're not just the worship team, you're stewarding the presence. You're teaching us, you're teaching everybody in our church how to engage and encounter the very presence of God. You're not just security, you're a peacekeeper. You're making sure that the space is safe so that all of our families can focus on worshiping God without fear. You're not just production, but you're in the ministry of clarity. You're in the ministry of clarity. You're protecting the word to make sure that there are no distractions. You're taking us all over. When you put those notes on screen, you're not just clicking a button. You're making sure that people can learn. You're making sure that nobody in the sanctuary gets left behind, because somebody needs to hear it. Other people need to see it so that they can write it down and take notes. You're giving people their devotional content for the next 7 days as they study the screenshots and what they wrote down. And so what we've got to do is we've got to reframe. And I'm going to take this because I have more than this. I have a little bit more detail than this. I'm going to take my entire notes from this, and I'm going to turn this into kind of like a mini resource inside of the library. And so I'll give this to you all in the replay section. Okay. For all of you who are part of our program or who decide to come into one of our programs here. All right. But one of the things that you got to do is you've got to be able to reframe what people begin to do. All right. If that makes sense, you with me on that. Somebody drop purpose in the chat. Purpose. You got to close the purpose gap. You got to help people see what they're doing. All right. Let me expose this last gap, and then we're gonna talk solution. Okay. I'm gonna show you the shift that's gonna take it. All right. Put purpose in the chat. Purpose in the chat. All right. All right. Number 3, and this is the big one. Feedback. Feedback. All right. Let's deal with this. Feedback. When we talk about feedback, one of the things that you need to realize is that people need to know how they're doing. You know, there is this idea in the digital world called gamification. And gamification is something that we all understand. It's when you receive points and rewards for progress. All right. One of the best examples of gamification that I can remember from my childhood is the McDonald's Monopoly game. McDonald's created a game where every time you bought something, you had an opportunity to win something back. I can remember vividly how many times I won a small fry. I can remember vividly when I won a free large drink and all this kind of stuff like that. I kept trying to get Boardwalk and Park Place to win that $1 million, but it wasn't the Lord's way. Okay, and so, but I remember vividly they made a game out of coming to McDonald's, and as a result, every time they did the Monopoly, they would see a boost in sales. I don't know if it still works the same way it does, but they would see a boost in sales because more people would get engaged because it was clear what the wins were and it was clear how to get there. And so people had this process where they were being reminded, like, okay, here's what you got so far, but also here's what you don't have yet. Okay, you got this, but you don't have that, but you don't have this, and you don't have that. And so they put it out there for people to get it. And so one of the things that you've got to understand is that you've got to figure out what's going to be the feedback loop for the people in your church and on your team. How are they going to know whether or not they're doing a good job? I'm gonna tell you when I first learned this. My first worship leader, maybe my second, but one of my first worship leaders, she said to me, I just don't know how I'm doing. She said, I just wish you would tell me something. Like, she was like, would you just give me some feedback? Now, at the time, what I was doing is when something wasn't going well, I would jump in and say, nope, this needs to change. This needs to be different. But I wasn't so good at jumping in when something was going right. And even when it was going well, and she came to me and she said, I just want you to tell me, like, give me feedback, because I'm growing, I'm trying to do this, just tell me. She was asking for feedback. And I think you might be surprised too to discover that that your people, especially the people who are called to you, man, they value feedback. And even if they don't value, you still got to be willing to give it. Here's some of the challenges. A couple of things. I tell myself first. Sometimes people don't hear from us until something is wrong. And it creates a negative relationship with that leader. Creates a negative relationship. Because basically what it says to them is all you notice is when things are going wrong and not when things are going right. That's what it says to them. And that's what they hear. And that's what they see. Because that's their experience. That's their experience. And so you got to be aware of that. You got to understand that. All right. Here's another thing. Silence, a lot of times, gets interpreted as disapproval. When you don't say anything, most people assume the negative. Hold on, let me cut this heater off. When you don't say anything, people assume that your response is negative. And whenever they get stuck in a place of uncertainty, it begins to produce insecurity in them. All right? When they get in a place of uncertainty, it produces insecurity in them. And so what you got to get is, just like it says, silence is a message. And most people interpret silence as I'm not paying attention, this doesn't matter, or I disapprove. All right? And so what you've got to get in the habit of doing is giving feedback. Now, this is how I told and how I encourage leaders to talk to their pastors. I said, whenever you bring a problem, bring solutions. So don't just dump stuff in their laps. Bring some solutions that say, you know what, I've at least thought about this before I brought it to you. And I gave them some details. I gave them some really step-by-step. Here's when you communicate with your pastor. Here's the channel you use to communicate with your pastor. I gave them all the details. All right, now here's what I'm gonna say to you. When you communicate with your people and you communicate feedback to your team, if you're giving positive feedback, give it as loud as possible. As loud as possible and as public as possible. Let them know that you value them. Because when you offer public feedback loud and proud, what it does is that it sets a culture of celebration, and you're teaching people to celebrate each other. When you give negative feedback, what you want to do is you want to give it its proper context. And in most cases, that looks like the age-old Oreo. All right, something good. The big thing we need to address, something good. Hey, look, I appreciate how you took the initiative on that, because I didn't give you a whole lot of detail, man, but you took that thing and ran. Here's one thing I want to change. Whenever we do events like this, there's like a certain look that we want to have, right? So make sure you put black tablecloths on all the tables, and then also make sure you communicate with the media team so that they know that everything is set up, so you won't have that, and so on and so on. All right. Now, that being said, turnout was good. Programming was awesome. We just got to fix that one little piece in the middle. You got me? So for next time, like, keep that same initiative. Your program was awesome. The content you had was great. and all the things, just make sure the setup is like, take it to that next level, take it to that next tier. And you're going to be all right. All right. Boom. Guess what? I just gave them feedback. See, this is why when I used to work in a secular job, whenever it was time to fire people, they used to make me do it. Just because I knew how to give people feedback in a way that made sense to them, but also made sense to us. Right? And so you can do the same. You just got to learn how to communicate it. You got to learn how to communicate it well. And if you communicate it well, I can promise you there are people that you have lost that you didn't have to lose if you learn how to close the feedback gap. Because the feedback gap is, yes, about giving people negative, feedback and telling them things they need to change. But even negative feedback doesn't always have to come across that way. There's a way that you can say it that feels like you're tearing me down. There's a way that you can say it that feels like you're coaching me up. And it's all in your communication. All right. And if y'all remind me, I'll try to remember to put some of those extra communication tips into the members area so that y'all can have them when we talk about this. All right. So you got the clarity gap, you got the purpose gap, and you got the feedback gap. All right. If you with me, drop feedback in the chat. Let me know that you're with me. We're gonna round this thing home, and I'm gonna give you this last piece. All right. So here's what you got to do, man. My brothers, my sisters, stop demanding and start designing. I can guarantee you can't shame people into passion. I don't care how much you preach at them, how much you dog them out. Well, there's just some places where, some folks, some of y'all, y'all come to church ready to pray. Some of y'all come to church like you ain't want to be here today. They might not be next week. You keep talking like that. Stop demanding, start designing. Stop demanding. Stop trying to make them, hey, do this, just do it. Start designing it. Start preparing them for it. All right? You are not going to shame people into passion. And then I'm going to tell you, motivation is not it either. In my experience, motivation is what we run to when we don't have systems. Motivation is what we run to when we don't have systems. When we didn't do the work of putting processes in place, we run to motivation. Like, oh, let me get everybody motivated. Like, nah, my team ain't motivated. Well, guess what? If you have systems in place, motivation doesn't matter as much. That's the whole point of a system. It keeps things the same, even when people aren't the same. My Lord, today. I just keep coming up with these new definitions for systems. I need to be writing them down. Because at this point, I got at least 20. My goodness. Systems make sure things stay the same, even when people are not the same. That's what they do. The process doesn't change. When I feel like it, when I don't feel like it, the process stays the same. All right. And so what you've got to do is you've got to start removing those barriers and those gaps. All right. So let me give you some stuff and then we'll go. All right. So here's a framework to re-engage your quiet quitters. All right. So you're trying to re-engage them. You want to get them back plugged in. Here's how you can do it. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to bless you. All right. Because I need you to understand, you cannot demand from people who you have not equipped. If you haven't equipped them, don't get mad when they are not ready for battle. You got to train them. You got to raise them up. You got to put it in them. All right. So here is how you can do it. All right. I call this the 4 C's framework. Clarify the win, connect the dots, coach them up, don't command them, and then celebrate progress. All right. So let's walk through these. All right. Let's walk through these. All right. Number 1, clarify the win. What you've got to do is you've got to define what success looks like for every team member. You got to define it. You got to make it abundantly clear so they don't have to guess about it. All right. This is one of the things that I'm adding to our Easter kit. All right. So coming up on Thursday, we're going to be walking through the next phase of our Easter kit. We've got I think we're up beyond 30 churches that are relaunching on Easter Sunday now. And it's going to be a big endeavor. I cannot wait to see what God does. I'm asking God, I'm not even sure what the number is yet, but I'm asking for a harvest of souls in those 30 churches. And so we're going to see what God does and how he does it. But one of the things I'm going to add is a 1-sentence win for every single role, because we created job descriptions for every role on your team. And we're going to be talking about that Thursday on our coaching call. But one of the things that you got to do is you got to make sure that they know exactly what the win is. If you can't define the win, they can't own it. Stop asking people to own what you have not defined. All right, that's a rule. Stop asking them to own it if you haven't defined it. Number two, you got to connect the dots. Okay, you got to make sure that you help them see why their work matters. You got to help them see why their work matters. This is why, I've been on this kick lately with staff meeting, and I'm not going to give this away. I'm just telling you right now, I'm flat out not giving this secret away because it is one of the most impactful things that I have ever discovered and ever found. But if you learn how to ask the right questions in your staff meeting, it will completely realign your team. It will completely realign your team. Too many leaders make the meetings about what they need to discuss and what they want us to discuss. And as a result, you don't know where your people are because you don't give them enough opportunity to talk and to share. And there's literally one question you can ask every week that will completely change the game. But a part of it is you got to get into telling soul stories, tying every single thing that people are doing to a story. You get what I'm saying? Like chairs aren't chairs. They're seats for people God is about to send. Like you've got to learn how to connect your vision to real life people. All right. Let me keep going. I could do so much more on that. But I want to close this out. Number three, you got to coach. You got to become a good coach, man. I remember when I was in ROTC in high school, our sergeant made us do this exercise. He said, give me step-by-step directions for how to walk out of this room. First person they said, stand up, walk out the door. And the person stood up and was just like standing there like, what does that even mean? You didn't give me directions. He's like, nope, that's not detailed enough. We went to the next person. He said, all right, slide to your left out of the desk, stand up at attention. Walk 6 paces straight ahead, do a left flank turn, walk 3 paces straight ahead, you'll be out the door. Right? He gave them step-by-step instructions. Sometimes where people end up is a result of the person that they receive directions from. And that's how you can tell if you're a good coach. Do your people get better? Do your people get better because you're coaching them? Do they change because what you bring to them, adds to them and transforms who they are? A lot of us, we literally ask God to send us people and we assume that they're finished when he does it. We assume that when he sent them to us, they are everything that we asked for. And it's like, no. Every leader comes with a sign that says some assembly required. You've got to assemble the leaders that God sends to you. You've got to pour into them. You've got to build them. You've got to challenge them. You've got to listen to them. You've got to walk with them. And that's what a good coach does. And I learned that this year coaching football when my players came off the field and said, hey, look, this is what they're doing. I had to listen to what they were saying. Why? Because they were out there on the field. They were out there. I'm over here on the sideline. I see a lot of stuff and I know a lot of stuff, but I got to listen to what they're saying because even if I'm not going to do what they say, they've got to believe they have a coach who hears them. And you got to be close enough to your people to coach them. And that means not just telling them what to do, but also letting them tell you. Also listen to them. One of the things that I appreciate, because I'm on a church staff right now. One of the things that I appreciate about being on this staff is I have a pastor who is smart enough to do everything himself, but he's smart enough not to. He's smart enough to do everything, but he's also smart enough not to. And that's the point you've got to come to, is that you've got to learn how to coach, meaning that you've got to tell people make sure they're clear on what they're supposed to do. And then there comes a point you got to let them do it. And when they fall short, falling short is not an excuse for you to take it back over. Like, listen to me. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. If you are a small, intimate church, let people make those mistakes now. Because there's a place where the mistakes cost a whole lot more. Like right now, like let people make mistakes. I was talking to a pastor, he's like, man, I can't take this, I don't have nobody else to preach. I said, so it's nobody. He said, man, I got somebody who can preach, but man, he's struggling. And I looked at him, I said, brother, I said, can I say, you know I love you, right? He's like, yeah, can I say something honestly? I said, yeah. I said, man, let him preach to them 10 people in that church. Go on your sabbatical, get your mind right, and then come back. When you come back, we'll build you some new ministers. But don't kill yourself because you need a break. Your wife is screaming down your neck that she needs a break. She's tired, you're exhausted, and you won't do it because you believe that this guy can't preach to your 10 people, right? And I'm not saying that as a disrespect to the number of people who are in the room. What I am saying is you got to see the bigger picture. You got to see the bigger picture. Yes, folks gonna make mistakes. You know what? You make mistakes all the time. You make mistakes all the time. Let them make them and then coach them. Because you know when my kids listen to me the most? After a mistake. I can tell them all day, man, hold the milk with 2 hands. But after they wasted it once and saw the mayhem it created, that experience taught them more than my words could. I can say don't touch the hot stove. But once they got too close to that grease popping in the skillet and that cast iron, oh, they back up real quick now because that experience taught them something that I couldn't. And one of the things that you've got to do is you got to transition to being a coach. You got to transition to being a coach, and you got to let people tell you where they believe they need to go. Let people tell you. You're going to put somebody in charge of children's ministry? Say, all right, well, look, let's sit down together and let's choose a curriculum. I want you to go and research something you like. And then let's sit down and let's talk through it, and we'll pick one together. Like, let them take on some of the weight and the responsibility. Even some of the things you're carrying in your head right now are things you need to pass off to other people. And let them do it. And just say, look, I'm going to coach you. Because when you coach them, a good coach doesn't just let players go do what they want to do. I still got to call the play. But I also got to let them go out there and make the plays. All right? Number 4, last but not least, you got to celebrate progress. And this is huge. If you don't create a culture of honor, you will not be the recipient of a culture of honor. You know, we've had this upside down in the church for too long, where we want people to show us honor while we dishonor them in their roles all the time. And really, honor has to go both ways. It has to be circular. It can't just go up. It's got to come down and around too. And so what you got to learn to do, you got to learn how to celebrate. If you only celebrate the sermon, people are going to assume that that's all that matters. If we only celebrate the pastor, people are going to assume that's all that matters. You've got to create a culture of celebrating everybody. I'm going to tell you what I learned in my last pastorate. When I got there, I went into a church that was not a super strong culture of like tangible, visible honor. Just because of the culture, you know, it was a church that come out of the Mennonite denominations, very stoic, kind of docile kind of people. And so for that first probably year and a half, 2 years, I went overboard showing honor to my successor. Whenever it's their birthday, we walk in here with a cake. When it's their anniversary, we sending them away on a sabbatical. You know, for every time I could, any moment that I could quote something that, you know, my predecessor had said in a sermon, I would say it in a sermon. Anytime I could call his name and show how much I had learned from him, how much he blessed my life, I would do it. I wanted to create a culture of honor. And here's what I realized, is that when I went out of the way to honor him, the people started going out of the way to honor me. And so if you want to have a culture of honor, you got to create it. That's true, Pastor Kebrew. People they'll take on your personality. And so you got to create a culture of honor. You got to create that culture where you celebrate people. Celebrate those who are consistent. You know, sometimes it's simple stuff like saying, you know, look, I pulled up this morning, I saw John outside, and listen, one thing I can tell you, I don't care if it's daylight saving times, Maylight saving times, you know, hamburger, schmamburger, Lakers in 5, all right, whatever. Like, I know John gonna be out there at that door. Something as simple as that. Rain, city, look, now one thing y'all know, John gonna be outside now. And we all crack a joke laughing, but I'm celebrating that John is gonna be in place. Man, listen, I just got to say this. I got to say this. Look, I've been out. I've been sick. Man, Sister Ruth called and checked on me and brought me some soup. And I know all of y'all pray for me. Appreciate y'all for praying for me. But I just got to say how much it meant to me, Sister Ruth, that you came out, that you thought about me while I was down. Because so often, you just don't know. You got to create a culture of honor. All right, let me keep going. So let's get ready to close out. All right, so here's the goal: is that you want to create ownership and not just help. You want to create ownership and not just help. And so I want to change your prayer request. I want you to stop praying and asking, Lord, just send me some help. You need to be more specific. Ask the Lord to send you some people who can own some legs of the journey. Why? And this is what I wanted to get to. This is the gist of it. This is how you recover your quiet quitters. Volunteers give spare time. Sons and daughters protect the inheritance. My Lord, today. That's what I'm after. I'm after protecting the inheritance. I don't just want the spare time. I'm after protecting the inheritance. That's what it takes. That's what it looks like. That's what it becomes. All right? You got to pray for God. He said, the harvest is plentiful, the laborers are few. Pray for the Lord of the harvest, that he would send more laborers into the field. More people who are going to go out there and collect and grab a hold of what has already been laid out for us. So we're not just giving out assignments. We're transferring vision and responsibility. We're not just randomly throwing stuff to people. We're transferring vision and responsibility so that people can take the next step in where God has called them to go. All right. So I want to give you this homework, and then I'm going to close out. I'm going to pray. All right. So if you would, go ahead and if you have a prayer request, drop your one-word prayer request in the chat. Just one word. One-word prayer request. All right. Just drop it in the chat. You can say owners. You can say builders, faith. You can say feedback, purpose, whatever. Just drop your one-word prayer request in the chat. All right. So here's what I want you to do this week, man. Don't be dormant. Gather your team, even those who are dormant, and help them move forward. One of the things I've been doing for the last couple of weeks is because the Lord sent us a couple of churches, several churches here lately, that are smaller congregations that are trying to really drive ahead and drive forward. And these are congregations that were once big, but have gone through a split. Somebody left, took people, all this kind of stuff. And so one of the things that I've been doing is helping them to rebuild their teams. And I've done it enough that it's probably going to be another training that I'm probably going to put together here pretty soon. But as of right now, I'm just doing it one-on-one with these churches and pastors who need it, okay? But one of the things that I'm helping them do is that I just helped this church, matter of fact, this weekend, church in Houston. They're getting ready for this in 2 weeks. I helped them plan their reset leadership meeting. They're doing a reset meeting where they're bringing all the right pieces to the table. And I laid out exactly what they're going to do before that meeting, what they're going to take to that meeting with them, what they're going to say to the people in that meeting, and how they're going to have a clean start after that meeting. And so we've just been rebuilding this and laying it out and putting it there again for these pastors who are in that program. And so we've just been walking them through it. And so when I start to see something over and over and again, I start to get a sense that there's something happening in the body, right? You get enough of them and you go, all right, this is something that's happening in a lot of places. All right. So here's what I want to give you. I want to give you just a semblance of it, just something simple that you can use to start, something simple that you can use to move forward. All right. And then we'll help you kind of drive that thing forward. All right. And if you need that, absolutely. Come on, Victoria's Faith. If you need that, Pastor Lucy, and you guys want some help, just let me know. Let's schedule a call. And for any of you, if you're in the program and you're walking through and you really got to reset your team and things of that nature, just let us know in the community because all of our communication is in the community. Let us know in the community, and then what we'll do is that we'll get something planned out. What we'll do, because it's really been on my heart these last couple of weeks to call a special meeting just with senior leaders and say, hey, look, here is how the enemy is trying to move. Here is how I respond to it. All right. So here's what I need you to do. Let's step up. Let's do this. And here's how we're going to, and this is a huge part of it, is really kind of coming to the point where we say, look, let's get our teams back. Because you cannot build your church until you build your team. That ain't even in the lesson tonight, but let me say it to somebody. You cannot build your church until you first build your team. Because it's the team that's going to build you the church. Okay? It's the team that's going to build you the church. And so here's where you got to get clear. Let me give you this before I give you this homework. This is your turning point. You have got to ask yourself the right questions. Stop asking why they won't help. Stop asking why they're not committed. Start asking, what did I fail to clarify? Start asking, where did I fail to connect all of this to like a deeper sense of purpose? Where is feedback missing? Where have we normalized being dormant and dormancy? Where have I allowed people to be apathetic and keep their jobs, keep their roles in ministry? All right? You've got to start to take responsibility because that's going to be the next step. All right? So here's what you got to do. Real quick, write the win. Make sure you create that one sentence definition. Again, if you're in the program, I'm going to give you this coming up. We'll do this on our coaching call when I give you the next phase of the Easter piece. We're going to have a set win for every single area. Number 2, ask the questions. Ask them. Get close to them. What's your biggest challenge? And then number 3, show honor. All right, make sure you show honor. All right. So look, I want to pray for y'all. Y'all spend so much time praying for other people. So tonight I want to pray for you. All right. So I want to go through as many of your prayer requests as I can. And we'll pray and we'll get ready to close out, man. I hope this has been a blessing to you. If it has, I want you to take one final opportunity to just share this. Share this with somebody that you know needs to hear it, somebody that you know will be blessed by it. And I would appreciate that. All right, let's pray. Father, we thank you so much tonight for your word towards us. God, we know we live in an era and a time where it seems as though people are quietly quitting. So many of our leaders seem to be slipping away, seem to be walking away, seem to be falling away. But I thank you tonight, God, that you have given us wisdom and you have given us strategy to combat the work of the enemy, that you have given us steps that we can take in order to continue to move your work and your kingdom forward. So tonight, Father, I pray that we would see this clarity rise up in these, your leaders. Father, I pray for every leader here tonight. Specifically, I pray for the requests that they have shared. Father, I pray for Pastor Kebrew, God, that he would have perseverance to continue to drive towards where you have called him to go, to continue to endure and continue to walk through this season, knowing that on the other side of the wilderness is the promised land, and the promised land is approaching. Father, I pray for Michael King that they would see growth, that you would allow growth to be his portion personally, that you would pour into him, surround him with the right people and the right tools and the right things. And I pray, God, as he invests in himself and as you give him the leadership to invest in a team, that he would also begin to build them for the sake of your kingdom and for the sake of your glory. And Father, I pray also, I pray, God, for Eva Barber, God, that they would really be established, God, that you would allow them to be where you have called them to be, God, that you would allow their ministry to take root, God, that you would even allow them to step fully into what you called them to do. God, I pray for Pastor Smith, Pastor Warren, that you would give him the grace to build and continue to build in the process that he's already moving. God, I pray for Tinsley, that you would give them also the ability to build what you have set before them. God, I pray for Pastor Ursula, God, in South Africa, for their team, God, that you would give them what they need, give them their team the clarity and the wisdom and the guidance and the tools that they need to go ahead. I pray for Janice, that they too would be able to build in the way you've called them to do it. I pray for Pastor Crutcher, God, that they would see growth. I pray growth first, Father, in the leaders. And I pray that as they grow, God, that they would be able to expand your vision and your wisdom for them. God, I pray for Anthony Bailey, God, that their church would not be dormant, but that they would be alive and active and moving forward into what you've called them to do. God, I pray for the Fennells over in Fredericksburg, Virginia, God, that you would give them wisdom and focus, that they would have wisdom in knowing who to trust, who to walk with, who to empower, who to allow to lead, but that they would also have focus, God. They would be focused on this season that is so pivotal for them, that they would step in and continue to move and drive and go towards where you have called them to be, Father. I pray for Pastor Pierce that you would give him what he needs to continue to build and to build what you have called him to build and to raise up who you've called him to raise up and to take that city and that region for your glory. God, I pray for John Evans that they would have owners, that their teams would come in and they would no longer be called servants, but they would come into the realm of friends and owners and sons and daughters, God, that they might truly be able to embrace and hold on to the vision for what you have called them to do, Father. And I pray that as we continue to walk down this journey, God, that we would see your goodness before us. God, I pray for Derek Gambrill, God, that you would give them growth and vision and help them, God, put it internal first. Surround them with the support that they need because growing churches are led by growing leaders. I pray lastly for Sheila Hodges that she would be able to build a strong team, that you would give her the growth and support that she needs in order to move the needle forward. God, I know that you have great things for your people. Father, let them see them. Let them stand in it. Let them walk in it for the sake of your kingdom. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Listen, as we get ready to go tonight, some of you uh, have been asking about just about some of the details about our program, and some of you all have been looking at our programs and wanting to know more about it. And for those of you who are in our program, man, look, how do we appreciate you? For the rest of you, I want to invite you to go over to our website. We just did something, and it is, I'm going to tell you at the very onset, it is a very limited kind of thing. Because it's not something that we like to do a whole lot, but it is something that we decided to do just a little bit to be a blessing and a help to so many of those of you who are in the body. But if you go over to our website right now at getchurchsystems.com/systems in a box, one of the things that we have done is that we have added some more payment plans to our program to make it as affordable as possible for those of you who need it. Our program, our base program for Church Systems in a Box is $19.97. But we have just added some payment plans where you can break that down monthly and you can be a part of that program for $250 per month. That includes all of our weekly coaching calls. It includes all the access to the library and things of that nature. Now, there's no custom work in that. We're not going to customize all the things for you. Those are part of our larger programs. But if you're here and you just want to get started and you say, look, I need some help and I need it right now, we just put something together. And I actually did it for a group of pastors that I met with this weekend. And I told them that I was going to get ready to take it down tonight and to get ready to pull that down tonight because I was going to keep it up until Tuesday at midnight. And so since we just so happen to be here on Tuesday, then I'm going to invite you into that as well. And so if you want some help and you want to step into the next phase, if you go to that website, getchurchsystems.com/systems in a box. If somebody would put that link in there for me, Latoya, if you could do that for me, I see you here. If you can grab that Systems in a Box link and just put the direct link in the chat for me, I would appreciate that so that those who are here can go back and get it. And then I'll go back and I'll put it in the description if it's not already there. I'll put it in the description of this video as well. Let me see if it's there. It may already be there. Yeah, it is. So if you just go up there and you click the link in the description, it's in the description of this video. You can go there and you can actually see it and you can see our church system in a box. And so if you want some help, listen, we're here to help you. And there is such a desperation around this because I see the number of churches that are on the verge. You know, so many of you are so close. You're so close. And like many people, all you're missing is just the guide, just that somebody to come alongside you and to help invest in you and to help challenge you and to help bring you forward. And if you get that, then I'm telling you, man, God is he's going to blow your mind. And this is a perfect season for it. I'd love to have you on that call with us on Thursday, whereas as we get ready to lay out the next phase, because as I said, as of Thursday, we will be 60 days away from Easter. We'll be less than 60 days away, as a matter of fact. All right, I think we're 60 days right now, 60 days away from Easter. And so literally the biggest day of the year for many churches is coming up in 60 days. And if you have not prepared yet, you're behind and you need to start preparing now. And we're going to help you by giving you the tools to do that. All right. Listen, I thank y'all for being here. Thank you, Lady Nakia. I appreciate it. I need that. I need to be replenished. I'm gonna keep drinking my tea. I'm gonna try to get well because I heard it's cold in New York and I don't even own a coat. So I got to figure it out. So I need to get well, and I need to get well. So once I leave New York, I can come up to y'all up there in DC area in a couple of weeks as well. And so I appreciate that. Thank you for your prayers. All right. Listen, God bless y'all. Thank y'all so much for being here. I'll look forward to seeing you all again coming up next Tuesday. All right. Until next time, keep the gears turning. Peace.